Hi, welcome to the Big Smith News Watch and welcome to Focus. Today we're here with the Director of the Competition and Consumer Affairs Commission, Mr. Anil Sukhdeo. Anil, thank you for having us.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. I love being here every week. It's an opportunity to speak to the consumers there, so I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Okay, today we'll be speaking on the importance of consumers being mindful when signing contracts for goods and services. But before we get into that, could you tell us a little about the Commission and what it does?
Right, so we're a publicly funded subvention agency under the Ministry of Tourism, Industry and Commerce, called the Guyana Competition and Consumer Affairs Commission. We're empowered by two pieces of legislation to protect consumers and their rights under the collective laws of Guyana. So if you have an issue, a consumer-related issue, you can contact us. If you have a competition-related issue as a business owner, you can also reach out to us and we can advise you whether or not the laws are, in your case, would need to be enforced. So today we said we're going to talk about contracts.
Yes. So my first question is, why is it important to understand the contracts we're signing?
Oh, anything you sign, you should understand what you're signing to. I was just told by my colleagues I would sign my life away and I wouldn't know. So when you sign to something, you really sign. You put in your name there, you're endorsing it. So you have to be mindful of what you are signing to, because again, it could be your life, right? So take a look at contracts that are being offered by suppliers, and many times the contracts are issued in cases where the purchases are of significant value. They're there to protect both your rights and the rights of the supplier. So they're there to delineate the terms of what's expected of both parties. So it's a form of protection and it's enforced by the courts. That can be enforced by the courts. You can have oral contracts and you can have written contracts. I would advise against oral contracts, because while you can take that to court, it becomes what we would normally say a he said, she said kind of story. And it's so much more difficult to enforce. I would advise against that. So when you're given a written contract, please take a look at it. Take a look at the terms. That's one of the first things you should do. So it would say, X person is buying whatever good or service. Read the description of that. You should have a description of the transaction, value of the transaction. If it's a high purchase, it would have the payment terms and periods. So there are a number of important things within contracts that are highlighted there that you should take your time to read it and then endorse. If there's something within a contract that you're not compatible with, you don't have to sign it. You can ask for it to be changed. Maybe you can negotiate with the supplier. If it's, let's say you're buying a car and your car is 6 months warranty, maybe you could put it if it's a new car, could we do mileage instead? You could say X amount of miles it will be covered under, which is the standard. Or some people put time period, we can cover it for maybe 2 or 3 years if it's a new brand vehicle, or whichever comes first. So there are things in your contract that you can negotiate depending on what the transaction is.
Okay, and what steps should consumers take before signing contracts?
Well, number one is that you always read your contract. Make sure your contract is clear. Make sure the terms are that are in there, that you agree to them. And if you're not aware or familiar or understand a contract fully, maybe you can ask someone for help. Even the supplier, you could ask, maybe, okay, can you explain what this section means or that section means? Secondly, and very importantly, what we found is, to our surprise, is that a lot of persons actually sign contracts that are blank in some sections. And this actually comes back to haunt them, because then the supplier can go insert whatever terms they want there, and it's usually to the detriment of the purchaser. So please, 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 under no circumstances should anyone ever sign a contract that has a blank section or a blank page. And don't feel forced to sign it. And they might tell you don't worry about that, man. We'll do that later. You just go ahead and sign it. You can take this thing and you can go, and we'll fill in the details later. Nope, nope, nope. Never, never, ever do that. It will come back to haunt you because you basically signed, like I just said, your life away, or in this case, it would be whatever you purchased. So those are two very important things that you should do before signing contracts.
Okay, so in the event a business or someone who's two people approaching an agreement, one decides that he wants it completed and the other doesn't because something arises such as the issue of time or so, what would you recommend to them?
I would, anyone that forces you, you should under no circumstances feel forced to sign a contract. That's a situation you should walk away from. Number one, that person is not considerate of your circumstances. You should not be forced to sign it because you haven't fully been read into what you're signing to. And I would lose trust in that person or that business that would say, oh, sign it now or sign it today. It's deceitful behavior, and it's to your detriment and to their benefit. So please don't feel that you have to be pressured into signing a contract. And many of the services and goods that are sold in Guyana, we have competitors for them. So if you take a look at the car industry, the vehicle industry. So it's not that you have one person supplying vehicles or two or three or four. There are there's a great number of service providers, vehicle providers there. So at any point where you feel that one person is pressuring you to sign a contract, you can walk away. You can walk away. The prices are pretty competitive. They're relatively close when you look when I would have looked at the car industry. The deal is, there's not much significant in the change in the terms. So if that's the only thing that differs, that you feel pressured signing a contract, I would say no. And that's indicative of deceitful behavior, I would say. So take your time, and you can always return to the table after having it reviewed. If you as a layman feel pressured, that's fine, but don't give in to that, because even the experts and lawyers would like, oh, I need a few days to review this. Why then should you, who don't have that understanding of what a contract is and what all the technical terms are, why should you feel pressured into signing it right away when professionals take a few days to review something like that if they wanted to, or a few hours if they're proficient?
Okay, and what would the commission consider as a binding contract? What are some of the characteristics? Does it have to be specially stamped by an official, or
no, it should be signed by the parties and should have witnesses to it. But and then it should have what constitutes a regular contract, which is that there is an offer, an acceptance, etc. So something should be offered. These are the agreements, and the parties would have accepted it by saying yes, we are accepting the terms of this conditions and terms and conditions of this transaction. And many things are simple contracts too, and that don't necessarily need written, long written document. But again, anything you do as a consumer, you should stop, you should think. It's your money, it's your time, and it's at the end of it, if it turns sour, it's additional burden on you to come to us. We can resolve your matter, we will resolve your matter, but it takes time away from you, from your mental health, from your finances, from your work, from your emotions, from your family life. It's better to be safe than sorry, and I would urge you to. And again, if you have a contract, if you need any help in your purchases, if you feel that you're being fleeced or deceived by a supplier, you can always contact us before you make that transaction, so we can investigate that.
I think that's it for us today.
Well, again, it was lovely. We can be reached at 219-4410 or at cau@ccac.gov.gy. Just feel free to call us under that number. Send us an email. You can visit our office in Sapphire. We're here to serve the people of Guyana. And I think we've been doing a pretty good job so far. And check us out on our Facebook. We have lots of information there. And you can leave a comment on your experience if you've had an experience with us.
Okay, thank you for having us.
Thank you.